Well, lastly, you do know a bit about politics in rugby.
Do I? Oh, in
in
rugby.
Wales.
Yeah, I was
in
gonna know
Wales.
politics,
Let's just
so.
finish on this then. I don't know what your views are. I think I heard them, but maybe you can share them. So the landscape isn't great, okay, in Wales. And let's put this out there. Me and Biggs were talking about it, actually, that you're not a businessman. He's not a businessman. Well, you are loosely, but you're...
But not
yeah,
I know what you mean.
We don't understand commercially the numbers. No. I've never looked at a P&L. I didn't even know what a P&L was until someone told me what it was. So there's smarter people with this. I'll maybe just give you my views on this, because the same happened in the Premiership when 3 teams went under, when Worcester, Wasps and London Irish and Newcastle were at breaking point. It's sad, right? Of course it is. Anyone loses their job, and in our sport the teams go with deep history, like a team specifically like Wasps. But unfortunately, their business hasn't managed to be able to sustain, to carry on going. So they've had to fold. Like, that's the simple economics of an organisation, whether or not it's sport or not. Take out the people, unfortunately, because you have to take emotion out of business. When you speak to successful business people, that's what you have to take the emotion out. Otherwise, you can't do. Otherwise, you do what rugby does, and you sat on that. Oh, should we? And then nothing gets done. So with the Welsh stuff specifically, I'm hearing a few rumours. So there's 4 teams currently playing in Wales. So you've got the Great Ospreys, the Great Scarlets, the Great Cardiff, and the Dragons. The Dragons have been around a long time, and I'm hearing that they're sustainable. There's talk of them dropping 2. So that I just wanted to give the listeners a little bit of context. Now, from my point of view, and then I'd love to hear yours. From my point of view, if it's not sustainable, you can't carry on in that vein. You can't be, here's a bit of money there, here's a bit... Because that is rugby. That's what we've done for the last 10 years. And that's why we're not sustainable as a sport. And it's an uncomfortable conversation that people don't like. But I think I'm going to say this. I think fair play. Because someone's now having to do it, and it's fucking uncomfortable. Right? And you're in that process now. Where are you? Where are we? Where's Wales?
So, of course, people are not in a lot. I say this a lot of people, right? We don't know this. I reckon there's a lot of people who would be in support of going down to 2, which is seems to be the front runner proposition from the Welsh Rugby Union. There's a lot of people up against it. I bet there's a lot of people quietly for it, but they just don't feel the need to verbalise it. One, because they don't want to have shit thrown at them because they support the idea. Now, I think credit to W for making a call. Is it? If you had to give me I had to answer this really quickly, yes or no? Do I agree with it? And I can only say one answer because there's obviously it's deeper than that. I'd say yes, and I'll say why. Is it optimal for right now? Yes, in my opinion, I think it is. Is it what I want? No. What I want would be the 4 current teams pulling up trees in the domestic league, and we have a 5th team up north. That is optimal. That is when all of Wales is represented. But we're nowhere near having that. We cannot sustain that financially. We don't have the player base to do that unless we bring in a load of foreigners, which defeats the object. So what would I love? I would love 5 teams. I'd love the 4 entities to still exist. I'd love a northern, RGC, Gogledd Cymru, North Wales in Welsh. I'd love an RGC to be a big, like Wrexham have done, have a big commercial and playing wise successful entity up there. That would be, I think would be optimal. But can we do that now? No. What's best for us right now? It probably is to condense it into 2 teams from a financial perspective and from a player base. Now, I think the reason people struggle to imagine that is because the tier below right now is miles off it. So I've always taken inspiration from, it's never rinse and repeat from another nation, but I've always taken inspiration from New Zealand. I'm not sure what it's called now, but the NPC, whether it's sort of Taranakis against North Harbour, Wellington, Auckland. That's like an exceptional breeding ground for guys to step up into Super Rugby. Now, and I said this about 6 months ago. Now, the 2-team thing would work, but you've got to supercharge what is called the Super Rugby Cymru, which is the teams underneath that.
Is that like Pontypool, Pontypridd?
So you have to, you have to bring back Llanelli, you have to bring back Neath, have to bring back Pontypridd. These are big, in Welsh context, big brands in rugby, really passionate communities. Now, you need to get a 10-team league there where anybody who's not playing for Wales, so say that league runs throughout the year, but when the Welsh lads are away on Six Nations in autumn, say you had 2 sets of professional players in 2 regions, so 45 players, 90 players, 35 in a national squad. So the remaining 6 players, because some of you guys might play in England, 60 guys all drop down into that league every week to play, and then but the coaching goes up, facilities goes up. That's going to need a lot of investment. But then suddenly, those teams are playing in front of 3,000-4,000 people, which is more than some crowds that the region's getting right now. But then you're bringing back to life that tribal nature, which is a strength of ours in Wales. You're bringing back to life that, because people can't see that level at the moment being at the standard it needs to be. If we can get it to that standard, then it'll work. Because I remember going to New Zealand, completely different, but we played an invitational team of people from their NPC, which would be our Super Rugby Cymru. I could not believe the standard. I know they got naturally more gifted players, but that's got to be the inspiration that we take. And can we get their Super Rugby Cymru, where it's your Newports, Ponties, Cardiffs, Nice, Lletleys, Bridgend, a team up north because you need representation up there, and others, the sort of biggest rugby cities and towns historically. If we can bring that level up to a really, really good standard, way better than what it is now, then it can work. Because it's almost going to be like, it'll be truly semi-professional / professional if you can get that standard there. And then your 2 teams then. And I know somebody said, well, who's going to support 2 new teams? I don't know what these 2 teams are going to be. We don't know. And I don't know what the answer is, right? Whether it's East or West, whether it's 2 mergers. I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know. But all I can say is, if one of those teams is playing in a semi-final of a Champions Cup and they're playing to lose, and they're playing winning rugby for 11 months, and Anton Dupont and Intimac are coming to town, they're playing in Champions Cup semi-final, people will watch. People will turn up and watch. It's a massive game. So success on the field will breed success off it as well. So it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg, what comes first. But that I think it can work if everything else is done correctly. It can work. Is it optimal for right now? Yes. Is it what I want? It's not what anybody wants. I bet the W are thinking, I wish our 4 teams were killing it and we could add another region and it's brilliant and it was snowballing. But unfortunately, we're not in that situation, which is why a tough decision has to be made.
Yeah, and you don't need to be a businessman to see that.
No.
We can sit here and discuss that because it is obvious. The stadiums are empty, right? You look at the pathway of the players coming through, it's a struggle. So I think it is positive. And the irony is 3 English people who are making the decision. I know they'll be white. I say that in kind of tongue-in-cheek. But it must be so uncomfortable for them. And they are walking through the fire at the minute. But there is no, from my limited business knowledge looking in, there doesn't seem to be another option.
There was I was presented some data. I won't remember exactly what the numbers were. I could try and put it up. But when you look at the amount of registered rugby players in England and France and South Africa, and then you look at it compared to Wales, proportionately, Wales should have like 1 team. For example, it isn't these numbers, but say somebody had 1 million registered rugby players and they got 10 pro teams. Well, if Wales have got 100,000 registered players on the same proportion, you'd have 1 pro team. It's not those numbers, but there's, for example, Wales have got way more teams per proportion of registered rugby players than any of the top nations in the world. So that's why you're kind of up against it. If we had a huge playing base, then we'd be able to support 4 teams, but we don't. So we're just diluting. We're diluting that. Scotland's in a similar position, had to go down to 2. Wales don't have the same playing base as France, as South Africa, as England, so we can't have that. We don't have as much talent, which means we can't have that many teams. And obviously, economically, Wales isn't the most affluent country in the world. So to make those entities then, you might have the players, but to have it commercially viable is more difficult again. So that's why hard decisions are being made, and there's going to be people from communities who don't like it. But that's why I think then whoever suffers at the top 2 level, every community could benefit from really enhancing the SRC, which is what they deserve as well.
Well, that's the thing. So the community aspect, and this is again a negative statement, but where the ball has been dropped in rugby is the heartbeat of your game lived in Neath and Bridgend. I said Pontypool and Pontypridd. When I was younger, you'd go there. You're like, that's the identity of Welsh rugby. And Scotland, you mentioned, like similar, went down to 2 teams. I was in Melrose the other week. I'm walking. People talking to me about rugby. I was like, there's a heartbeat. There's a soul. Melrose, Hoyk, and how they do that. And I don't know what Scotland Rugby did, but there was a semi-pro league in place there, which they're kind of half-arsed, really. You have to go all in to that semi-pro bit. because that there is the masses, that's the numbers. You build up that tribalism. There needs to be a cup competition that galvanises the community, that kind of sparks that interest of rugby, and that's going to be the hard bit, right? Because when you lose people, and now you've got Wrexham and you've got the football that's taking over, that's going to be the hard bit to bring them back. But I think you can. I think there's still a flame that's lit.